There's blood in the sky and it's falling on me. Feel it cascading as it washes me clean. The blood of many will be spilled by my hand. You will believe me when it covers the land. I don't feel much.
All right, I'm putting things on Instagram. Hold on. We can go talk.
All right, everybody.
It's for our
one guy that won't put down his phone.
It's for the podcast Instagram.
Well,
Jeez.
Jared's busy. I'll introduce our guest, our first ever guest here on Cities of Blood podcast, and I'm very grateful that he's taking time out of his day to come out here and spend a little bit of time with us here talking about murder. So this is David Kulczyk, renowned murder author. Guy's got, how many books do you have, Dave?
5 books right now.
5 books out right now, and you're currently working on one, you're saying.
Yeah, currently working on 2. One kind of, the one that's kind of, getting off somewhere else right now is the accumulation of all these crimes that I found through the research of my other books that all have one thing in common. So.
Well, I mean, it's all crime.
Yeah, it's all crime all the time.
So you're the crime author.
Yes.
I like growing up. One of my favorite TV shows was Kulczyk, the Night Stalker.
Yeah. Yeah. My brother was Carl Kulczyk, and it was his first year in college, and my first year in junior high or something, and that was still one of my. When I was a messenger, that was one of my names, Night Stalker.
Night Stalker.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Is that a TV show?
It was a TV show in the 70s. This is going back because this show wasn't rerun a lot. Like a lot of other shows get reruns.
Right.
This one didn't get a lot of
Just
reruns.
recently now, in the last couple of years, they show it.
I think on
TV.
Yeah, they might have them on Hulu.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But it's called Kulczyk, the Night Stalker, and it's is it Gavin? Who is it?
Gavin, one of the greatest actors of all time. Gavin.
McLeod?
Not McLeod.
Newsom?
No, Newsom.
No.
That would be the brand new mayor. Now I want to look it up because I
He
don't.
was in Christmas Story too.
Yeah, you're right.
The father in Christmas Story.
Goddamn Bumpuses! Yeah, he was the best. He wasn't the guy who was he reminds me of the guy who was killed in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I get him confused with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a reporter, and he would get fired every episode.
Yeah.
And usually his editor would get fired too, and the show would always end with him driving out of town.
Well, he always had the best cases or stories that he came across. Like I remember the one with the electric guy that was like a shocker or something.
Yeah, and the werewolf and the vampire.
Darren McGavin.
Darren McGavin.
He was married to. Check out who he's married to. He was married to like a babe.
Whoa.
Like a really talented. I was like, you married her? It's like, what?
Hey, Hollywood, right?
Yeah, well, he was always the gruff old guy, rumpled coat. And
That's true.
asking.
I loved him in A Christmas Story. We're back with Julio the Conspiracy Dog. He objected to being left out of this shoot, and we had to renegotiate his contract, but things are good now.
I mean, he was in the last episode, so.
Yeah. So I think we were talking about an old TV show from the 70s that you share a last name with. But
Spelled
if
differently.
anybody wants to go look it up, it's a great show, Kulczyk, the Night Stalker. We're going to get back onto David's books and some of the cases that Dave's written about here. And we were talking about you labeled her the man-eater.
Yeah, just like the song, yeah.
Just like the Hall & Oates song.
Yeah, it's
So this story can be found in California's Deadliest Women, which Dave's holding right there. Go ahead and pick that up on Amazon. It's a great book filled with a lot of gruesome cases, all women. And what I find interesting about, I think we were talking about earlier with women, is that I didn't say all of them, but a lot of them end up hurting the ones they love. In a really gruesome fashion, and this woman here seems to be a prime example of that.
Yeah, she had a horrible life. She was born in Egypt in 1969, which is like, how bad could that be?
Yeah.
And
Like 1869.
nobody really knows a lot of things about her early years, but she was probably sexually abused from the time she was born. You know?
Didn't you say in your book it says she was
She was,
Genital mutilation,
she,
yeah.
Yeah, she had genital mutilation, and that's pretty common
In the Middle East.
in some places in the Middle East. They're trying to change it now, but so that's what happened to her. So she came to the United States when she was 18. She was 5 foot tall, beautiful. She had like Dolly Parton's breasts, and she pretty much immediately worked as like a party girl, whether she was a sex worker or just paid to like show up at some rich guy's party so it looks like he knows people.
Right.
You know. So, and that's how she survived. She started, she was into bondage and stuff, and she would, one of her tricks was that she would tie up a guy and then just take his wallet and his money and everything else and just leave.
Disappear.
And one guy, suppose there were 2 cases where they just didn't show up for the trial or anything. They just didn't want to do with it.
Yeah.
And then a third guy was found by like a coworker. He'd been tied up for 3 days.
Wow.
And he was like all covered in shit and
Emaciated.
Like in the office.
stuff. No, it was at his house.
Oh,
They're like, hey, how come Bob hasn't showed up? I called him, you know.
That's like that movie 7 where you go in and there's the air fresheners hanging from the ceiling and the guy's been tied to the bed for 10 years. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So they're like, Steve, you know better. You go out there on your break, and yeah.
Just brutal. So,
Sounds like a yeah, I was gonna say like a 7 type scenario or
exactly.
something you'd see on Criminal Minds,
Well,
the
the
TV show.
The bondage thing, she I would think, now this is just a guess, but I think she may have gotten into that because regular sex just wasn't enjoyable for her because of the genital mutilation.
Yeah.
So
And
now-
because
so-
of her many different, sexual contacts that she had, it's like,
Probably enjoyed, having power over a man.
yeah, M&Ms are great, but if you eat 2 pounds of it, it's not,
So I had a problem pronouncing her name. What is her name?
Yeah, I had always had a problem with her name too, and it's just because I'm an American. Omaima Aree Nelson. She married a Nelson guy, Richard Nelson, just kind of like I Dream of Jeannie. Captain Nelson.
Yeah.
And he was did some time for smuggling drugs. He was a pilot and stuff. But Thanksgiving Day, it was October 28th, 1991, she her and her husband had a big B&D session, and she tied him up, and then she like beat him in the head with a iron, and then started cutting him up, and she barbecued him, and she fried his hands in oil, and she had all these guts in plastic garbage bags and stuff. She didn't know what to do with them. So she put them in the trunk of their Corvette they had. And she still didn't know, so she called a couple of her ex-boyfriends and asked them to help dispose of it. Like one after another.
Yeah.
And both those guys called the police like right afterward.
That's-
after they hung up.
It's like one of those scenarios where you're like, oh, so-and-so's calling me. I wonder what they're up to for Thanksgiving. Oh, help me hide this murder from the police.
The first thought is probably, oops, booty call, and then all of a sudden you get the details and you're just like, girl.
Yeah.
Oh, not her again.
No.
She's back in town. Yeah, she said, nothing tastes as good as the man I married. It's the sauce that does it. So, yeah, they found his body parts were messed with leftover turkey parts, too. His head was cooking in a pot in the stove, and his hands are fried in cooking oil. And she ate him.
And in the book, it says, you say that she dressed up for the occasion.
Yeah, she dressed up in little a red top hat and red spiked shoes, and
Threw on some lipstick.
yeah,
That's kind of to go back to podcasts that we've done since we started doing this. It's something wrong with the old clicker.
Oh, yeah.
You
Well,
know, it's-
she took it to
there's definitely something wrong. I mean, she shouldn't be in like a real prison. She should be in like a real mental
A
hospital.
mental facility, yeah.
Because who knows what she went through in her early life, and then just she tried every single kink you can think of, and ended it with cannibalism, which was like seems to be, the ultimate.
And went through
thing
such
to
an
do.
elaborate process, and she reminds me of this other woman that we were just talking about earlier. But in the process of actually, the head's in the pot, the ribs are done. We got rid of the entrails. I'll just put them out in the car. And then on top of that, dressing up for the occasion. This was like almost ritualistic in the way she carried it out, which doesn't seem to me like an anger killing.
Yeah.
And too, what's the deal with the frying of the hands?
Well, I guess, some cultures like chicken feet and stuff, and pig's knuckles.
Yeah.
That's really delicate little muscles in there. And I guess if you cook right, anything can taste good if you cook it right, or if you're hungry enough.
Tastes like chicken,
Right?
What they say.
especially after you fry it in oil. That's brutal. Now, her defense when she tried to when she took the stand, this I think is if there's anything funny about it, it has to be her defense, and that was she claimed self-defense.
No self-defense.
Oh, yeah.
Now let me remind you, everybody, the man was tied up. This was a bondage
Right.
thing. He couldn't move, so the jury had a hard time buying that.
Yeah. But I think they should have found her insane because she's obviously insane.
I think, and I agree, because you go back to her history as a child and probably the abuse she went through there, tend to be mutilated the way she was, and I'm sure coming to America when she did, and basically looking at probably as a sex toy for these men, led to her being a dominatrix, that then led to her eating her husband.
When she assaulted these other men or tied them up and left them there, was there a history of assault with those cases too? Did
No.
So she just tied them and left them. She didn't beat them up. She didn't cut them. There was no prior history of.
I don't know if she gave him a happy ending before she left, but let's hope she did.
It draws me back to another reason. When you snap, why take it that far? And to give it a little history on you were telling me on and the book says a little bit about the guy being a drug smuggler, and you said he had a Corvette. So this is the '80s. I'm taking it, and
91.
91. So this guy was like living the dream. He's middle aged. He's got a Corvette. He's a drug smuggler, and he's got a 5 foot tall knockout of a exotic girlfriend here. Only he was living life a little too close to the edge, and he didn't even know it.
Yeah, I'm in a nice condo in beach town and all that.
What city was this in?
91.
No, city.
City.
Oh, what city was it in? Okay, so I wrote this like years ago, so...
Yeah.
Oh, Costa Mesa in Orange County.
Oh, okay. I know
He's
Costa.
living the dream.
I would say I know Costa Mesa very well. It's
Yeah.
Wow. And then just to snap and take it that far. An anger killing would be, stabbing him 17 times, at a fury, and then, calling the police.
Yeah.
Or even shooting the guy and emptying the clip into him, totally an anger type thing. But to go on and actually take a body apart and then consume it.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine in a situation where you're not starving like the Donner Party or something,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess her culture, that to go with this, she probably had to kill her own food where she came from. I don't mean to
She lived in
insult.
Cairo.
Well, I mean,
Biggest cities in the world.
well, I've watched specials on Cairo, and
Yeah.
you still see them killing
they're
calves,
still killing the chickens.
killing chickens, and all. So I just mean that. It's not like us kids these days where or your kids these days where they just throw some chicken nuggets in the microwave and food's prepared for them. She was probably familiar with the process of having to kill something in order to eat it.
Yeah.
Whereas I think most people these days, even including myself, are a little bit turned off by that process. We just like going to pick up a cheeseburger at the drive-through window. We don't want to go through the process of killing a cow, slaughtering it, aging the beef.
It takes a special person to do that.
Yeah. Well, that leads me to the other woman that we were talking about, or we were going to talk about today, and this is it Teresa Knight?
yes.
Is it? It is Teresa, right?
It is Teresa. Yes.
So yeah, Teresa Knight of Australia, and I know
Kathleen.
it's Kathleen. Is it Kathleen?
Oh, Catherine.
Katherine Knight.
Okay, excuse me.
Katherine Knight.
Katherine Knight.
So we'll go with Katherine Mary Knight.
Katherine Knight. I'm getting my serial killers confused. So
She's
she was from Australia. He's going to find out what part of Australia, so we don't insult anybody from down under. But
she's Aberdeen.
Aberdeen. So this was the only woman ever sentenced to life without possibility of parole in Australia.
Yeah, in 2001, she was sentenced.
And
She's at the Silverwater Women's Correctional Center in New South Wales.
yeah. So to set the stage between the two, besides the fact that these are both murderers, they both only murdered one person. They both murdered their lover. They both dissected their lover, and one of them fed it to their children.
Yeah, she murdered her then. I don't think it was her husband. I think it was her boyfriend.
Her living boyfriend.
And butchered him because that's what she was.
An arbiter.
Arbiter.
She worked at a slaughterhouse.
She worked at a
slaughterhouse.
And
She skinned him. Actually, before that, she, much like the prior woman, got dressed up in lingerie.
Yeah.
When he came home and fell asleep, she then stabbed him 34 times, I think we said.
and front and back too.
Yeah.
So he's like rolling over.
Well, he got away from her. I was reading. He got away from her, got down the hallway. They believe he got to the front door, but she had stabbed him enough times to where she either pulled him back in. No. She thinks that she pulled him back in or drug him back in, and then he died in the hallway.
Yeah.
And so
No escape.
And then from there, she skinned him, hung
His skin.
the skin on meat hooks that were in the house for some reason.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. Huh?
Yeah.
Well, she was proud of being a butcher or an arbiter, and she actually
tools.
Her tools of her trade were very important to her. She actually hung knives on the wall as So she was into her trade. She liked butchering animals, and so it wasn't a big leap to go from there to butchering her lover. The question is what happened? Did they break up beforehand? Was this the final thing? Because I had heard this one was a bit of a psychotic and had a past history of beating up her boyfriends. So, it had to be a special guy that was, willing to get involved, or a very desperate guy that was, willing to get involved with this psycho anyway.
Or they had just a weird love,
Yeah.
And
Well, yeah. Not to bring up another case, but that almost reminds me of the voluntary cannibalism case between that German guy and that English guy. You heard about that case?
no, man, I'm not into cannibals.
And there is the
Like, wow, I didn't know there were that many out there.
A lot of us. All right, maybe I'll put a book about cannibals together.
there's like the caveat to the story is that she does accuse the guy she cooked and ate of raping one of his daughters
One of
and
her
touching the son's genitalia.
Now, let us remind you, this woman cut a man up and then tried to feed him to his children. So if you think that she was doing it for the children, she was sick. She was trying to reenact fucking Shakespeare right here. This is straight up Titus Andronicus. She
did not get the chance to feed. She had the plates of food served up.
Yeah, and they didn't
but
actually.
the police had been called at that point, and they showed up.
So thankfully they didn't.
Yeah, the only thing is the mystery that I was just reading was that they found a third plate that was prepped with the food and the meat, the husband, whatever, and vegetables out in the backyard, which they think she fed to the dog.
Great.
So she
dog.
She fed him to the dog. She was going to feed him to his two children, and there was a note that basically said.
Now this skinning thing, I don't know if your man eater, did she actually skin her
I
husband?
imagine she'd have to skin some parts to
In order to get the ribs, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So these
Or fillet.
Probably not as skillful as Katherine, but
Yeah, but I think too. Yeah, like you said, to get to those parts, you're going to take the skin off.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd heard you were saying so skillfully. I'd heard that they were actually able to put the skin back on him.
Wow.
Like a suit, like, so that's how well she was able to do her. That's how.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, like you said, if you're an arbiter and you work at a butcher plant, you've got to be good. Mm-hmm. You're feeding the country.
Well, it reminds me of Ed Gein. So
yeah, it's a lot like he because he hung up his last victim just like you would a deer.
Yeah,
and I grew up in northern Michigan, so I've seen tons of deer.
Hanging up.
You go see, hey, your neighbor shot a deer. Okay, go check it out. It's in the garage.
Go see how big the rack is.
And so he had her hung upside. There's actually a photo of that. It's shocking to say the least. And
wait, there's a picture of the
body hanging up.
Really?
Yeah,
crime scene photos.
I think his house and the skulls and.
I think I've seen a bad copy of it.
Yeah,
but I don't think it was.
Well, a lot of those copies were taken as like secret pictures because they were supposed to go out. Yeah,
the copy I saw wasn't great,
like
but it
was
local terrifying.
The local beat reporters for the local NBC News guy.
Well, it's so anybody who's younger, let's say the millennials, and you don't know who we're talking about. Ed Gein is the original. Psycho. He's the one that Alfred Hitchcock made the movie Psycho after, or inspired by. He's also Texas Chainsaw Massacre was inspired by this case.
Is Ed Gein the one that wears like the hunter's hat, like the Elmer
exactly.
hat?
Yeah. That's him.
Okay,
that's him.
Yeah, he was mentally disabled. He grew up out in the sticks, small town in way northern Wisconsin, and he had an older brother. His mother really hated women and taught them to really be. That women were unclean and all this kind of stuff. So I had this mother affection thing. His brother died in a mysterious forest fire, which may have been set by Ed himself. But once his brother died, his mother died shortly after. It's like 1945 or so. He was all on his own in this big old farmhouse, which he nailed the upstairs off for all those years. He only lived in the kitchen and the parlor, and I believe it had an outhouse. It was an old-fashioned house. So in these 2 rooms of this 8-room big Wisconsin farmhouse, he lived for about 20 years, and he was going to graveyards with another Gomer Pyle type guy, and they would steal bodies. And it isn't quite clear if he had sex with the dead bodies. They might have been decayed too much, but he would collect their body parts and their skin. And when the police finally caught up with him, he had a soup bowl made out of the top of a skull. He made a lamp out of legs and arm bones with human skin as the shade. And he had a couple of real life, masks that were just skinned women's faces.
Well, then didn't he have a box of vaginas?
Yeah, he had a can of just different body parts. He would say the breasts and things.
Yeah.
And they think that he had killed this one woman a few years before when he killed this woman that owned the local store.
Yeah.
And so they went right up to him, and he used to babysit people, kids and stuff in the neighborhood. But they think that he might have killed this girl in the late 40s. In La Crosse, Wisconsin, right on the Minnesota border. It's a famous story of this girl. She just disappeared, 11-year-old. And she was straight A student and all that stuff. And I don't think they ever found her body even. But after the whole Ed Gein thing broke and after more investigations, he was in that area around that time that she disappeared.
So I just looked up real quick. They said they called him the Butcher of Plainfield, and the 2 women that they say confirmed he killed was the bar owner Mary Hogan in 54 and the hardware store owner Bernice Warden.
Bernice. It's a picture of Bernice hanging upside down, headless.
That's the picture.
Yeah.
They did find him legally insane.
Yeah.
What about? I had never heard of an accomplice before. Just a few minutes ago, you mentioned another Gomer Pyle character.
He helped them dig up a couple of graves.
Was that guy part of the trial, or was he just never named?
He was named and everything. Yeah.
He wasn't.
Sure.
And he was,
They were just like, wow, he's a simpleton too, and they gave him something, I don't know, a couple months in jail or something.
oh, so they didn't charge him with like
No,
digging
not
up
the-
graves at least?
Yeah, but that's not really
Not the
big.
murder. Yeah, well,
You
yeah.
can go out and dig up a grave and you'll get like a $500 fine.
Slap on the wrist. Yeah.
We can all pitch in and go pick one out.
Hey, it's like if you have
Not that kind of show, folks.
it's like if you have sex with a dead body in 1979 in Sacramento.
That's exactly what it was. It's the Karen Greenlee.
Karen
It's the
Greenlee.
Karen Greenlee thing.
I'd edit all that out if I was you.
Yeah. We probably will.
Oh, that whole section there.
Yeah.
I just kind of learned that from just talking at books, events, and
Yeah.
and things. It's like when I did the Diddly Women show, and the victim's widow, called me, like out of the blue,
Oh, shit.
and I was like, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am, yes, no, ma'am. I was total cold sweat, and
Yeah.
but she told me I got it right
Okay.
more than anybody, because we can talk about that case some other time, but
Yeah.
that's a whole big one.
That's still huge to be contacted by, somebody who's, you've written about, or, family member of somebody who've written about.
Yeah.
At least it sounds like she wasn't scathing or like jumping into you, was it,
No, she was very nice. She was like a real grandma.
All right, folks. That's about a half hour. They go fast, and we're going to have to say goodbye for today.
I'm Alexis Darevko.
And I'm Phil DeSaro,
David Kulczyk.
and come back and see us next time.
Remember, follow us on Twitter. Twitter is Cities Blood. Instagram is Cities of Blood.
Look us up on YouTube, and or if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, and if you like it, give us a like.
And click the bell so you get the notifications. And then Cities of Blood on
On
Facebook.
Amazon. On Amazon.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Buy his books.
Yeah, these are great books. If you're into this stuff, which if you're watching this podcast, you should be into it. So make sure you have a copy. So we will see you next time.
Thank you.